Alright, so I already mixed up the resin. This is going to be the first pour in the second batch molds. And we're going to get to it. This is the big cluster. Okay. Now, I need to hold this other mold up. Well, this mold's tricky. It's got an awful lot of crystal holes in it. So I am going to need to poke it with the toothpick. Just going down to wherever I see a little cavity, swirling it around without trying to scratch the mold. Because when you do this, you can mark up these molds and it will show when you pour the resin. So I got a bunch of bubbles coming up now. See the bubbles releasing. I just keep doing it till I start seeing bubbles rising. Because then I know I got down inside there and got the bubble out and let the resin into the hole. And this mold right here, look at all the holes in that mold. So hopefully we won't have too many air bubbles on the sides of our crystals. And when you do pendulums and the little diamond shaped gem molds, you need to pour a little bit in the tips of them and get a toothpick and stick your toothpick down into the center of the tip, twirl it around a little, and you'll see the big air bubble come out. And that'll keep you from having air bubbles, and the points of your resin crystals won't be missing. So I did poke around a lot in here, but it doesn't mean I got them all. I need to fill it up now. So any holes that you could see, you just go down in, swirl it around, and you'll see the bubbles coming up. I think the big one. See that big one? You could see, a lot of times if you have a bright light like this one, you could see the bubbles reflecting in the hole. And this one doesn't want to come out. I got about 6 bubbles out of this one little hole. Come on, buddy. There we go. See that? 6 or 7 bubbles came out of that one hole. And even though this was a big hole for a big crystal, you go down to the tip, where the tip of it would be. And there's little bubbles hiding down in there. And sometimes just along the sides on these crystals, just along the sides of the long crystal, little bubbles are hanging on to the side of the mold. And you'll see them reflecting. This mold is the crystals that had crystals sticking outside of the crystals themselves. So there are a lot of little baby holes on the sides of where these crystals are because of the way the crystal cluster was. So there's a super lot of bubbles in here. So I'm going to hit that with a little heat. Let me see, the big bubbles are coming up in this one now. See that? There's still There's still bubbles down inside this one. And there's a little split on the side of this mold, and I did not tape it. So next time I have to tape that because it's sitting in a little puddle now. Sometimes people take alcohol and they squirt the molds with alcohol to break the bubbles on top. I could still see bubbles down in here attached to that. I think it's impossible to get these perfect, to be honest. But the more effort you put into it, the better they'll look. And it's really important when you go to pour your mold, use your mold, you got to make sure they're 70 degrees or warmer. I know today when I did these, it was really thick because I know my house was only at 70, and the last time I put the oven on to bring the temperature up in the kitchen, and I forgot to do that this time. So it was harder to get the silicone to go down into the crevices. I was really pushing with my stick to try to, push any air out. So it's not always perfect. You got to work with it a little. And we'll just put the rest into one of these little clear druzy molds from the other day. Talk about bubbles in this one. There's a lot of little teeny tiny bubbles in this one. I have a tiny bit more. See, when I topped that one off, it brought the air bubbles up from the edges. One more baby one. Remember, it's the law. Don't ever waste a drop of resin. It's against the law. That's going to drip. That's a no-brainer. These ones I'm probably going to try to remold them into something that's a little more square or round. I'm going to take the drusies and put them in the bottom of something and try to make it, because these I actually had to lay over top to get them to mold inside the broken geode. I smashed my geode so I could get the resin in there, and that's how I got these drusies. So I have to work on making the mold a little better shape with the drusies, so that'll be something that I have to work on too. Lots of little bubbles in these, and I don't think you could really see them once they're out of the mold. Yeah, because trying to balance these is like a pain in the butt. Trying to balance them level, so I really need to figure something else out with those. It's a learning experience. This one, I need to keep this one, because this one has that long point and I have the little bubble of silicone on the back side of it. So that's uneven. So I need that one needs to be propped. Sometimes just a couple extra drops makes a difference on it not spilling over the edge. So just take a couple little drops off. Who wants to sand if they don't have to, right? That bubble just doesn't want to come out. Come on, boy. Bunch of little bubbles down in there. Well, we got some of them up. Wow. Right in here is a big bubble. It sure looks like a big bubble. It's shining like a big bubble. I think that was where I cut some of that mold away. The edges are shining like a bubble, but it's not moving. I'm going to put a bigger bunch of little bubbles down in there. But that looks like one bubble settled in there. But I have a feeling that's the bubble that I tried cutting out of the mold itself that was in there. Oh, yeah, so it's not a perfect science. Just do the best that you can. So this mold is that cluster. That mold in there is that cluster. And this big mold here is that cluster. This is the cluster that I built and it pulled a crystal off. So we'll know tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And then I can scrub up all my crystals. I put spray coconut oil on them all when I just took them out of the mold a little while ago. Okay. That's all she wrote. Time to go meditate. I highly recommend it. There's also a trick I seen done with these. They take acetate paper and they lay it across the back of the molds so that they come out flat. And there's none of this upraised anything. So I'm sure you could also probably do that with the plastic if you knew it was the right, like 3-ply plastic. And you press down and then it'll come out flat. It'll push anything to the edges and then you just trim it. That was interesting. I had never seen that before. So I'm not going to do it this time, but I will do it another time so I could show you. I just learned that last week. I swear I see a bubble. It's the mold where it's shaped like a bubble. All right. Make something beautiful, people. Rock on. Ciao, Bella. Don't forget to wear your nitro gloves, your respirators, and your goggles. Don't do this around kids or pets. And don't do it in your house. I'm in the far corner of my basement in another room in the basement. And I have an exhaust system here that goes to the window. And the exhaust sits over my desk in a big hose and it sucks out vapors. And you just need to practice proper PPE, please. Don't think you're smarter and better. I see a lot of artists, they're you could see they're irritated. Their skin is either gray or their skin is pink, and you could see how puffy they are. Their hands, if they're not wearing gloves, their hands are a mess. You know, I mean, come on, be smart. Don't take chances. Your family needs you. Be good. Later.